All right, so we are back for part two of the over-the-shoulder hand analysis from a poker tournament I won earlier this week. Part one covered hands 1 through 97. And we're going to pick up the action now at hand 98. We have a pretty decent stack. It's 25,000 chips. The blinds are at 350-700, which leaves us with roughly 35 big blinds. And we'll pick up the play from here. Again, as stated in the first video, this is a rebuy tournament, and the rebuys go through the blinds being 500, 1,000. So once the blinds get to 600, 1,200, we'll be out of the rebuy range. And that might change things like the dynamic of the tournament slightly. We'll talk about that when we get there. All right, so hand 98. And I think, again, we have 295 total hands in the tournament. So it's a suited hand in the small blind. If no one raises, we're probably going to complete and play here. And it ends up being just blind versus blind action. Standard thing to do here is just complete and see what happens. He checks and we see a flop. We have some weird runner flush and straight draws, but basically we have nothing. And I'll be looking to check fold this. Oh, wow. Surprised myself a little bet here. And he folds. Well played, Lance. All right, we have ace-king under the gun. The blinds are up to 400, 800, which leaves us with about 32 big blinds. We're certainly raising this. We would be willing to play this for all our chips pre-flop if it comes to that. So I imagine what we're going to see here is a raise to about 1,800 or something under the gun. Raise 1,600, get called by the small blind, called by the big blind. Our pot at this point is 7,100. Our stack is 24,000, which leaves us with an SPR. If you didn't watch the first video, SPR is an important concept in tournament poker, particularly. It refers to the size of your stack divided by the size of the pot. So S is for stack, P is for pot, R is ratio. And we're playing an SPR of about 3.5 here. All right, we flop nut, no pair. The big blind leads for 1,800. Pretty fishy looking thing to do. I can't imagine folding here. Raising seems kind of crazy. What this bet screams to me is he's got something like a deuce or threes or fours, something like that. You basically never bet here with a 7 unless he's really leveling me. So I imagine what I did was called and saw what happened next. Another 7. He ships it. Almost surely he's got a full house here. Probably something like queen 2. I can't see calling here, though. You had ace 2. Okay. On to the next hand. We have 9-2 suited in the big blind. And we have a min raise to us. We're probably going to complete here. You're getting like 7-to-1 odds on this call. There's 5,500 in the pot. It's 800 to call. Suited hands, like I'm pretty much just always going to call in situations like these and see what happens. All right, so we flopped third pair and a backdoor flush draw. I doubt we're going to put any more chips in this pot. Yep, next hand. Queen Jack. We are 25 big blinds deep, and we are in the big blind. A button makes it 2x. Small blind calls. Probably calling and taking a flop here, which we do. SPR is 3.5 again, and we flopped pretty much bupkis. Goes check, check, check. Turn is a brick. Check, bet, fold, fold, and we're on to the next hand. Queen deuce in the small blind. We are down now to like 20 big blinds. Okay, the blinds are up to 500, 1,000. We have 18-1 in our stack when we begin the hand. Couple of limps we go ahead and complete with queen 2 suited. Flop nothing, and we go away. Boring hand. All right, ace queen of diamonds in the small blind with 15 big blinds left. We're probably just going to be playing this for all our chips pre-flop here on most normal action. Like, I guess you could invent a couple of ways this might go. Like if it went raise, all in, call, perhaps I would get away from this hand. But basically what I'm thinking is I'm just getting all my chips in pre-flop here and come what may. So we've got a raise to 2,000 off a 20,000 stack. So this is just easy ship. He folds and we pick up 4,000 chips without seeing a flop. So that's always a good result. All right, we're going to skip all the way to hand 137 here. And we are out of the rebuy period. Not sure how many people are left right now, but we're probably approaching the bubble, which is where so this tournament had 115 people or something, and normally about a quarter of the field gets paid. So we're probably looking at like 29 people getting paid. I imagine at this point we're down to say 35 players, somewhere in that range. And the effect of this, a couple of things. First of all, you can pick on other people who have medium stacks who might just be looking to preserve their stack to make sure they get paid, because people have a very psychological anchor to winning money once they get invested into a tournament, you know, say 3 hours worth of time. Getting $0 at that point is going to feel way more bad to them than it should. So one thing you can do is pick on the medium stacks. It's actually much harder to pick on the small stacks who are desperate and the big stacks who don't care. So when you're in the spot, actually the most vulnerable stacks are the medium stacks. And when you have a medium stack, you've got to realize that, like, you know, you don't want to get too carried away with the concept that you're not going to play any hands. But at the same time, if no options present themselves like as profitable opportunities, it's going to be okay for you just to kind of keep on waiting for other people to bust the tournament so that you do get paid. All right, so it's kind of you're looking to take advantage of that, and at the same time you have to understand that, like, from an expected value standpoint, you're kind of subject to that working against you as well. All right, so we're definitely in medium stack to small stack range here with 15 big blinds in the big blind with ace queen. And the button limps here, that's weird. Small blind completes. I imagine I just shipped all the chips. I did. Went fold, fold. So again, that's great for us. Like, look, if we'd folded our big blind there, we would have been left with 14-3. But now actually we get up to 18-4, and we didn't even have to see a flop. So we've actually, like, increased our stack by almost a third, and we didn't even have to, you know, expose ourselves to any risk. So it's a great result for us. Next hand is 147. We have pocket deuces, and we have about 10 big blinds left. We're on the button. The button kind of doesn't matter that much now that we're talking about stack sizes of 10 big blinds, right? That's more of a deep stack concept, is, you know, position mattering a whole lot. So it folds to us, and we're just going to ship all our chips in here. Notice there's 3,300 in the pot right now that will be added to our stack if it goes fold, fold. That's a tremendous amount of chips to be adding to our stack if no one wants to tangle with us. If somebody calls us, you know, probably what they're going to have is 2 overcards, and we'll be racing. And if we win the race, we'll be up to, say, you know, 32,000, 33,000, which is fine. And if we lose, and we move on with our day. So we go all in. Small blind re-raises all in. And this looks like a terrible run out for us. And we just pray that he has ace jack or ace king. Hey, ace jack, what do you know? So we survived the race, and we're up to 32,000 chips now, and we've actually, got a somewhat healthy stack. Next hand, we get ace king with 21,000 chips. That's 9 big blinds at this point. This is just a no-brainer. Put all your chips in the middle. And it kind of doesn't matter if someone raises in front of you. You're committed. And talk about a good result here. He raised to 5,000 off a 20,000 chip stack. We moved all in, and he folded, getting 2-to-1 odds. So again, we have increased our chip stack by 50% here without even having to risk a board running out and us losing. Like, I mean, picture him having something like 7-3. He's still going to win. If a board comes out and we race, like, he's still going to win a significant portion of the time. So when we can pick up all these chips where everyone folds pre-flop, it's a coup for us. We're up to 32,000. Seems like we skipped a hand there. Did that happen? Nope. Okay. So this time we have sevens in the big blind. Looks like there's not a small blind on this hand. We are still in the 10 big blind range. Bunch of folds to us, and we just take down the pot. That's awesome. Walks are always good. Okay, this time we've got pocket tens. And again, we're just putting all the chips in here pre-flop. No questions asked with 10 big blinds left. It's a premium hand. And you put all the chips in and ask questions later. Even with a raise in front of you, it's just all the chips in. And somehow he finds a fold too. So, I mean, honestly, folks, we're getting pretty lucky here in that we keep on running into situations where people are making mistakes. I mean, you don't raise to 9,000 to have somebody behind you raise it to 30,000 and then you fold for 21,000 more when the pot's 47,000. So we're just getting into some unbelievably lucky situations there. And our stack is up to 47,000 chips, about 16 big blinds. We can actually see there that his hand was ace-9. I mean, you play the hand and call, or you fold it. You don't get stuck in no man's land there. All right, pocket fives. We have 10 big blinds left, and we are on the button. But again, like, position doesn't matter at these stack sizes. Bunch of folds. We ship it, and we win. Again, we pick up almost 25% of our stack there. So we go from 40,000 up to 48.5. Just huge win for us. Ace-4 on the button. This is, again, enough of a hand as to where at this blind level where you've got only 10 big blinds left, if everyone folds to you, you are putting all your chips in here. It's not so much that you think ace-4 is a great hand. The biggest thing here is that you actually have an ace in your hand, and that blocks a lot of the range of what the blinds would be calling you with. Okay, so like in a vacuum, I don't think ace-4 is that great of a hand, but the fact that it makes it less likely that the blinds have hands like ace-5, ace-jack, ace-9 makes it definitely worth playing here. And again, if it folds around to us, we're just putting all our chips in, ask questions later. If someone plays the hand in front of us for a raise or even a call, we're just done with this. So very, simple formula here. 4 folds and we're all in. And it goes 2 folds, and again, we pick up 25% of our stack. We're back up to 48.5. Ace-queen's a great hand here. Now we're getting into territory with ace-queen where, we're still raising basically just because we have an ace, but this time, if someone were to be able to call us, we would actually have a bunch of equity, and they might be calling us with a worse hand, which would also be great for us. It'd give us a good chance doubling up. When we raised with ace-4, it was more, kind of in the bluff range, just because not in the bluff range that we were representing a better hand than we actually had, but we knew that the fact that we had an ace in our hand reduced the chances they could call us. Here we've actually got a value raise, whereas we wouldn't mind so much being called by an ace, because obviously with the queen we outkick a bunch of them. So we'll see what happens here. It goes all in under the gun for 5 big blinds. We're not even worried about that. We should be way ahead of the range of what the under the gun player would move in with here. And yeah, I remember this hand. So something weird happened here. A guy with 80,000 chips made the call, for a quarter of his stack. It's weird in that he didn't just isolate by going all in over this person. I still just feel like ace queen is too much of a hand here, and people do weird stuff. So I'm just, again, it's like bite your lip and put the chips in, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see if this runs out not great for us. We probably think we're out of the tournament here, but we get a stay of execution because the person with more chips had ace queen just like we did. The person under the gun had 9s. So 9s wins that pot. Ace queen split the side pot, which was the bigger pot since we had more chips. And we are going to get to keep on playing here with about, 6.5 big blinds. Jack 9 here. So this is like, you find yourself in a spot like this with 4.5 big blinds left. If you get 2 reasonably high cards that's folded to you, you kind of just have to ship the chips in. Which I do. We get called, that's not great. And fold, we just hope we beat him. As we flopped a 9, that's good. And a club draw, and a 5. I would imagine Jack 9's ahead a fair amount of the time here, and almost surely ahead here since we go on to win the tournament. And it turns out he had kings. At this point, I'm like writing my entry in my spreadsheet, moving on with my day, getting ready to have lunch. And then I noticed, I actually had more chips than he did pre-flop. And I'm still alive in this tournament. We have 1,156 chips left at 2,000, 4,000, which means we have about 25% of a big blind left. And foreshadowing, we're going to go on to win this tournament. So the very next thing that happens, we had that pitiful stack of 1156. We ante 400 of it, and we get dealt an ace. That's a win. We just put the chips in and ask questions later. Couple of calls. We flop a bullet. That's good. Ace 7 holds up against his ace 5. And all of a sudden we have like 5 times as many chips. We're up to 6,580. We almost have 2 big blinds now. All right, next hand that we play, hand 187 here. Again, we have just over 1 big blind. You just put it all in with an ace. Big blind calls us. That's great. We only have to beat 1 random hand. And we get top pair, which should be good most of the time. And it is. And we're suddenly up to 3 big blinds. We get dealt a suited king under the gun. So we have 2 options right here. We could fold and get dealt a random hand next, where we're going to be in the big blind. Or we could go with this like better than average hand and hope maybe, only 1 or 2 other people call us and hope to get lucky. That seems like a better option to me. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 3 big blinds in here and ask questions later. And we get called by just the big blind. Very good result for us. Remember, he's going to have to call with like pretty much any two cards here. ATC is what the kids call it. So like I would not be shocked at all if my King 7 were winning right now. And we only have to beat one person. Only having to beat one person is, you know, way easier than if three people call us. Flop a pair. Is that good? It's good. He had 10-7. And suddenly we're up to 36,000, getting back in this. And with blinds at 2,500, 5,000, we are now with like 7 big blinds. There's a little min raise in front of us. Probably just called here and committed on if we hit a pair. Seems like the right thing to do. He does call. And all we flop is a gut shot. And this is going to go check, bet, fold. And you'll notice, like, we only have 8 people at our table right now. At this point, I think we're down to 2 tables. And our table has 8. The other table has somewhere between 7 and 9. So we're down to about 16 players at this point. And we have a pair with 5 big blinds in our stack. Again, it's going to have to be some crazy action in front to talk me out of just putting all my chips in the middle here. We have a limp. These chips are all going in. He calls, obviously. We flop a set. That's almost got to be good. And that 3 on the river makes us cringe a little bit just in case he had a 5 in his hand. Oh, but he didn't. He had ace queen, and I'm sure he thought he was good. But we actually flopped the set, got lucky, won our race. And we're at 60,000 chips now, at 3,000, 6,000. So we're at 10 big blinds. Just remember, a second ago, we were at a quarter of a big blind, and now we're up to 10 big blinds. So things are looking up. Everybody folds. That's an amazing result for us. We're at 70,000 chips. We have a suited ace on the button, 10 big blinds deep. Everyone folds. We ship the pot. Everybody folds. That's great. We're up to 72,000. We are 6-handed now at this table, which means the tournament's down to between 11 and 13 players. And we have suited high cards. If everyone folds, we're just going to put the chips in. We do. Everybody folds. We're up to 86,000, which is like kind of getting close to an average stack at this point, I think. I think average is probably a little over 100,000. But, you know, we're getting to the point where if we double our chips at some point, we're going to have well above an average stack. King 10 suited under the gun. It's now 5-handed. So we're right on the bubble of going to the final table. And you've just got to push this edge. You've just got to ship the chips in and hope that no one's got a better hand and they choose to call you and they win when the board runs out. Okay, so you've got a decent parlay working for you here. All the chips go in. Everybody folds. Awesome. We're at 82,000. So now we have moved on to the final table. There are 8 players left. We have ace 8. We're at hand 223. Is hand 215 previous hand? Yep. Okay, so it's hand 215 now. And it goes fold, fold, fold to the button, who ships all the chips, looking at 2 small, medium stacks in the blinds. And I'll go ahead and tell you here that ace 8 ought to be ahead of the range of hands that the dealer is doing this with, the button is doing this with. So the fact that we have ace 8 here and we block a significant portion of the aces that he might be doing this with, and there's a whole lot of dead money in the pot, like you'll see right now, if we call, we are going to be winning 77,000 against risking 45,000. So this, again, it's a no-brainer call. And big blind folds. That's good for us. Board runs out. Looks like probably we're ahead with 2 aces. And wow, we got super lucky. So he actually had a very premium hand of queens on the button. We just flopped an ace and got lucky. We are running very, very, very well here ever since we got down to 1/4 of a blind. But, you know, the thing to remember is you're allowed to run good sometimes. You got to put yourself in spots where you can get lucky. Okay. So next action, we have ace-5 suited, under the gun +1. We are now down to 7-handed. All these chips need to go in. They do. Everyone folds. Awesome. We have a premium hand in the big blind. Small blind goes all in. We snap call. 10 should be good. I mean, there's 2 jacks out there. Does he really have one of them? Nope. He had 10-7. So we had him crushed. We are at 230,000 now, and suddenly we are in the chip lead almost. Like there's a 232,000 stack. But we've worked this from 1/4 of a big blind up to tied for the chip lead with 7 people left. Ace queen, the small blind, very premium hand. Can't imagine that we're not going to play for all our chips here. Go ahead and do it. And again, like we're not getting cute here. It would be such a big win if he just folded, right? He's probably going to call with hands worse than this. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he's calling with any ace, which would be great for us. But we're not, you know, we're not limping. We're not like min raising. We're just going to put all the chips in here. It's kind of the expected thing we would do to either move all the chips in or fold. So perhaps he gets a bright idea to call us with a much worse hand. That would be fine. Him folding would be fine. He just folds. Okay, we are like tied for set. We're one of 2 medium stacks. We have 15 big blinds. The guy to our very left has the biggest stack. And the 2 smaller stacks, I mean, they're basically kind of medium stacks, are on our right. And we get a walk. Everyone just folds. Getting super, super lucky here, but you're allowed to do that. 9-3 in the big blind, and everyone folds. It's great. Ace-5 under the gun at this point. So what is, I guess we've just blinded off a bunch of our chips. We have ace-5 under the gun with, we are now at 6 big blinds. This is just all in. Everyone folds, that's great. Now we get a real hand in the big blind, jacks. The button calls, which is super weird. We just put the chips in and hope he's not getting crafty with aces or kings. Okay, great. Ace king under the gun, put the chips in, ask questions later. We get called. And we flop the nut no pair, which is going to be good a reasonable amount of the time, but you still can't feel great here. What does he have? Ace queen. More great luck for us. And we are, again, like tied for the chip lead with 5 people left. Queens in the big blind. We're just running like the sun here. Down to 4-handed, we pick up queens in the big blind. And he just gives us a walk, so it didn't matter what we had, it turns out. And now we pick up kings in the small blind. I mean, this is nuts. And we do go ahead and get a little bit cute here and raise to 60,000. What I'm hoping to accomplish here is to present the image that maybe I could be talked out of playing this hand and give him plenty of room to bet all his chips, thinking that I could fold when I'm praying that he does that so I can call. He just folds. 6s on the button. We have the chip lead. In particular, the blinds here have more chips than the person under the gun, so they are not going to be looking to get into a confrontation in a close situation, which means that if under the gun folds here, I can basically shove all my chips in, and it's not a bad idea with 6s anyway, but I have like an extra added layer of impunity because they are not going to want to call light here, knowing that if they bust, they'll get 4th place money when under the gun is headed for that 4th place if they just wait it out and play some more hands. So we ship all the chips in. They both fold. That's great. Same type situation here. If ace-8 on the button, we would be moving all these chips in anyway, but probably have a little more fold equity than we would normally. The big blind calls, that's pretty bad for us. Probably in decently bad shape here. What we hope is they have something like king, queen suited or pocket sevens where we have some equity against it. But probably we're going to have to get lucky. And look at that. We flop top 2 pair. This is how you play poker, guys. You just flop the nuts every single time. You had queens. Second time we take out queens with ace rag. So all of a sudden now we have a pretty huge chip lead. We have half the chips in play. This goes fold. Small blind limps. We just ship the chips in. He folds. We have another real hand here in the small blind and push them all in. Someone busts in third place. And now we're heads up at hand 280, 295 total. I don't know why it does that. Okay. He just folds. That's fine. 7-6 suited is not a fold, so we're lucky there. And basically, like heads up with 20 big blinds left, I'm just going to be min raising like almost all my hands, which I do. And he folds. Huge coup for us. And ace jack here. Again, we make the small raise. And basically at this point, we're praying he moves all his chips in because we would call him in an instant. And he does. And we do. And the board runs out king, king, 4, 4, 8, which probably means we're good with ace high. And we are. And that's how you win a poker tournament when you had a quarter of a big blind left with about 25 people. Just don't lose your mind. A lot of the stuff is just knowing when to push your chips in. And that was the win on Wednesday. So I hope you got some good stuff from this poker tournament videos. First one I've tried making. And maybe we'll do some more in the future. But anyway, I hope this gives you some good information on what my thought process is during a winning poker tournament. Have a good weekend, y'all.